So you got to watch our podcast.
I did.
First and only so far.
Yes, that's great. Everybody starts somewhere, so I think it was awesome. I was a little self-conscious coming into this one, though, because I wasn't sure what to do with my legs.
Yeah.
So I decided to pull the laptop, right? So I decided to pull the laptop closer to me, and that way nobody can see them. It doesn't really matter. So
yes. I totally thought you were making fun of us when you just said that.
No, I was.
Oh. I was
Sorry.
like, oh, did you forget? Oh,
No, sorry. That's my twisted sarcasm coming out. I apologize.
I got it at first. I don't know what happened.
She'll calibrate. Believe me, you can't offend her with jokes.
I was trying
It's going to be a very short show. Joe came on. Joe was booted off. Yeah, we decided to do a show just on our own today. Joe couldn't make it.
That was all we needed him for. Just one bad joke and he's done.
Jeff needed to test the microphone. Thank you. Click.
Everything's working.
Yes.
That's awesome. I'm so excited to have you here. And obviously, Samantha, see that it's good rapport.
Yes.
What's it called?
We'll see as the show progresses. It goes from an hour show down to 15 minutes. We'll know, right? But,
yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I just hope this isn't like the peak, like the best.
Yeah, let's hope, right? I don't want to pull a Costanza this early on in the show, right? So.
But
it can't possibly be the best part because I haven't really got to talking yet.
Yeah, no, we got to get
very true. Sadly, I suspect that may be the whole show. She and I have talked enough already that I know that we're both very much like that. So.
All right, let's do this thing.
Awesome.
So, I've never been interviewed before, like not really for real. So, my first thing.
That's okay. We're all gonna have some fun with this.
Yeah. Okay. I like that though. I feel like I don't know that I want like the solid structure of I'm dealing with that dynamic in we need a new cover photo for our group, and I feel like if I send it to the same guy to get a cover photo as a cover photo I already have, like it's too like I don't know, left brain, it's not
right.
I'm hoping that it'll feel more flowy and I doubt the same guy is going to give me something more flowy than he gave me previously. But yeah, I like the idea that this is like all of us just kind of like doing a thing because we want to do it, not because like you're like a professional at interviews and like we're really good at being interviewed.
So you're saying I'm not a professional?
I don't know. Are you?
This is really just keeps getting better and better. That was actually my agent. I've double booked. I'm sorry. I've got to duck out right now, but
another professional interview to get.
another professional interview to do. Yes.
Someone who wants to be interviewed by a professional, Carissa.
Right. I know. And then I've got to get my hair done again, and hair and makeup just finished in time for this one.
Right here.
Oh yeah.
So okay, we better get into it, or people are going to start tuning out on you every week. So I guess, hey, for those of you who've not ever met me before that are out there watching this right now, I'm Joe Trevors. Some crazy Canuck from northeastern Canada. And as we said earlier, I wasn't sure how to show my legs after that first show. And considering I'm from Canada, it's probably best I don't because we're only into the end of May and they're still about as white as that light over there that's shining on me. So, as you can tell by the top of my head. So I'm stoked to be here because a lot of what I've done in my entire life, no matter the profession or the career or the job that I was involved in or the contract I was involved in, the majority of my life has always been around emotions, empathic natures or callings or drawings. There's always been an element of everything that I've done that has been very personable. And so, many times I've been asked, so what do you do? And I've always wanted to just say, I'm just a people person. I'm into people. But if you're in the wrong audience, of course, that could get you arrested. But I've always wanted to say that because that's what I've always done. So my excitement in being in this show with the two of you is just that. The fact that, it's truly, and not to pigeonhole either of you, but what I see is that that's really the essence of everything that both of you do and everything that you feel, is about, fortunately, yourselves, but then also others and each other, you know. So it's that opportunity to be who you want to be, but then to also help other people be who they want to be. Because I understand on the surface, your businesses, right? Like what you're doing, your calling, but the way I see it, it's so much deeper than others may see it, I think, if I can step into that. In the sense that I feel that both of you are really more about, you know, that power and that energy and allowing others to do what I've always said, which is, you know, it's okay to be yourself. And I really don't give a shit who cares, or what the laws of, you know, society said. Not, well, I shouldn't say laws, because laws are pretty important. But let's say, you know, how people say, so, you know, that structure of society that says that as a mom, you know, if you're not doing this, you're not a good mom. You know, really?
Yeah.
But, you know, by whose calculation is that? Right. You know, so I've always struggled with that in general, but certainly as we started talking, Carissa, about, you know, about moms and about your group, you know, what, almost 7, 8, 9 months ago now, or whatever it was when we first chatted, I guess. I'm ADHD, I should be able to do the math better. But, you know, back in September, I guess it was, I think or August, when we talked, and, you know, I could see that, and I could see that opportunity for being able to help moms understand that it's okay to be whatever they are, right? And whoever they are, and doing things in whatever way they can and feels right to them, versus, you know, reading 27 books on mothering, right? You know, and look, we went through a lot of that. My wife and I were older parents. You know, I'm 48 and my son is turning 8 in a month's time. My daughters will turn 5 in November. And so for us, you know, we felt that requirement to go read books and, you know, and to see what all of the quote unquote experts were saying out there. And look, I have a couple of friends who are, you know, quote unquote experts with children, so I should be careful, but, you know, they know I love them and they know I respect their opinions. But again, you know, that's what it is. It's an opinion based on training and based on curriculum and generations and understanding. But very little of it, unfortunately, I find these days is based on any sort of empathic nature or, you know, guidance from energy or self. So, you know, Samantha, I know you're so much more into, you know, a whole other side of it that admittedly almost stretches too far beyond what I'm capable of at times. And I have a friend who's, you know, a Reiki master, and we talk energy a lot. And she even knows that some days that she just needs to tone it down a little bit. She's like, man, the old farmer, the old firefighter, he's just not getting it today. We need to slow up on the energy flow. But, you know, I also meditate, and she does, you know, she performs Reiki with me. So I love it. And I'm really keen over this hour, if I ever stop talking, or however long we have, to actually, you know, get into more of that, because I think that there's so much of that. And as a guy who, you know, has worked as a consultant and has done all sorts of, you know, again, people stuff all of his life, I can tell you now that over the past 3.5 years, what I've realized I was missing or not tapping into was my own energy, right? And not appreciating that flow, and what was inside of me and what I was able to give to others and then receive from others, versus, you know, any of the other bullshit that's out there, and worried about, you know, can I say that on here? Yeah. You know, I'm not Gary V, but sometimes stuff comes out of me. So, you know, it's, do we need to pay him anything for saying his name on here now? So, you know, it's really important for me, I think, to see that society's moving in that way. So this is really cool. I'm stoked to be on here with the two of you.
Yeah, I feel you when you were talking about how people ask you like what you do, and you're like, I'm a people person. It's really, because when people ask me what I do, I specifically utilized the concept of a doula, right? Because that's becoming a thing in society that people are beginning to like kind of understand. And some people like conflate it with like being a midwife, which is not accurate. A midwife is like there for like the medical side of birth. Yeah, clinical stuff. But a doula is there for like, I'll tell people like, it's like the combination of like who you wish your mom could be, you know, if she wasn't like terrified for your life and, you know, like all of that stuff, who you wish your mom could just, she would be like, I know you. And I know that like your feet are probably cold now. I know you probably need water now. I know this is what you act like when your blood sugar gets low, you know, like knows you and is attuned with you. And then like combination between that and like your best friend, somebody that you can open up, like you wouldn't want to tell your mom, you know, you can open up to, you can talk to about stuff, you can tell, you know, specifically about how this is affected by your relationship with your mom, you know, like all of that, like a combination of those two people who's just there 100% focused on you. And everybody understands, I mean, like that's the definition around birth. And so we know we have a birthing doula and a postpartum doula, like somebody to come over right after the baby's born and say like, let me hold her so you can shower or nap, or like, let me do this laundry for you. Or, you know, like somebody who can just come in and evaluate where you're at, what you need, and help you, not just like a midwife who's like, births are like this, we need to do that, you know, like because of births. And so what I did was to take the concept of a doula and say, like, we really need that through personhood, but also like, let's say motherhood, and then coining that term like as the motherhood doula. And I hope to one day have like the ability to train other women to like have kind of a compact thing to be able to train people and to do things for other women, and to just say like, just because that's kind of society right now is like, they only value you when you're pregnant. They value like maintaining so that that life inside of you like has a fighting chance of being born. And then after that, they just really don't care what happens to you. So, or the baby. Yeah.
They don't care as long as you're doing everything the way they expect. They don't care, yes.
Yeah. So the concept is that you always deserve that kind of attuned care. You are always that important, you and your baby. And like, and I mean, the best thing that you can do for a baby is to, you know, keep the mom like safe and steady, and, you know, and oftentimes what's keeping the mom not safe is the feeling of being unsafe because of stuff that's, you know, inside of her. So yeah, I mean, it would be hard for you to kind of use that to say like, are you familiar with a doula? Someone who's just attuned to you and like they're helping you. But that's how, you know, I have that in of being able to explain to people like, okay, there is something that I can tap into that you kind of have a concept of like a doula is just there to help you. And that's what I do for like everything that you need, you know. So yeah, I feel you on that, like needing. How do you describe that?
Yeah, and you know, with as much as I've done for writing copy for people over the years and for myself, and, you know, having done, you know, marketing and advertising and branding and all sorts of stuff, I still struggle with it every day with myself because, you know, I also find I feel differently every day. You know, I mean, there are days where my life coaching is more mindfulness than it is, you know, general life. And there are all sorts of different things that I'm doing with anybody on any given day that just feels different, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. So there are times where I can't even just say to somebody, yeah, I'm a life coach. And normally that shuts people up. Yeah. So, you know, so if I'm ever really just tired, haven't slept for 3 days because of the kids or whatever's going on, you know, I really don't want to have a conversation in a coffee lineup, which if you don't like meeting strangers, don't ever come to a coffee lineup with me because I'm known for just like striking up conversations. But I genuinely love people. So I love hearing people, even if it's only that, you know, 15 seconds while we're standing in a coffee lineup, right? I love that. I enjoy it. But truly, if there are times where you're not into it or you're not feeling it, you can just say life coach and people usually just clamor up and away they go. So yeah. See, even the dogs don't like it. But so I want to, they're not attacking you, right?
No.
Okay, good. As long as they stay on their side of the fence. So what's funny, in not a funny way, not a haha way, but what's interesting, I find, about the two of you having connected and all of the things in the story, and, you know, and I love it. I was listening, and see, I pay attention, is that both sides, if you will, are very much still, you know, society struggles with it, right? They're really not. And I'm hoping that statement doesn't come as a surprise to either of you, but that, yeah, sorry. She didn't know, right? You were supposed to tell her.
You're not to handle this.
Yeah. Somebody get her some water now. We're going to need, but no, you know, so it's funny that, I mean, for me, it's pretty easy, right? It's, you know, it's life coaching, and I've done a bunch of consulting and a bunch of stuff over my life. So people just kind of go, yeah, okay. You know, it's Trevors, and, you know, and this is what he's always really done anyway. So, you know, we get it, but it also encompasses so much. But when I'm talking to my friend Candace, and, you know, when she's talking about her stuff with Reiki, you know, we've had some really, really deep kind of conversations about how challenging it is. So I want to ask the two of you, and no offense, but Samantha, I want you to go first because I like, you're just further out there. I want to get your take on, on not only how you feel, with it, but how you work through that, especially with other people, but even with yourself, because part of what I work in all the time is helping people feel okay with what's going on inside them and understand that no matter what society is saying, this is your opportunity to shine and to go forward and, screw the rest of them. And so, in a mindful, positive way. And so with you, I mean, you're stretching and helping us stretch even further out there in understanding that, that true essence of, of energy and universe and so on. So I would think that you still in society get a little bit more looks even than I would in a coffee lineup by talking about it. Am I right?
Yeah, it's funny. I have to say that I kind of gauge who can hear it and who can't. I'm not necessarily always like, yeah, I'm an astrologer and I'm I do tarot readings, so I'm a divination counselor, and I can't say that to everybody because it's not necessarily something everyone is going to plug into and respond in the same way that I have to gauge whether or not we're having like a light conversation or if they're actually very interested or what. And sometimes I will just throw it out there and be like, yeah, I read tarot cards, and that's what I do for a living. Like, what are you gonna say about it?
Yeah,
and some people will surprise me, honestly, and they'll be like, yeah, I know a Reiki master, or something, one of my best friends or whatever. Or
like my dad.
Yeah, the people that I just will never think will be receptive to it. Right. Sometimes they are more often the people who need to hear it most, need something to latch onto because they are I'm desperate for this, and I don't get this in my immediate environment and in the structure that I've created. So, maybe I should do a lot more of the, this is who I am. This is what I do. You and I are talking. And so that's divine already. And, if you weren't ready to hear it, then you wouldn't be standing here in front of me.
Yeah.
So, but I definitely have some predisposition of concern over just being that open, because I feel still in a physical reality some boundaries up around people and society and how that backlash sort of is not always open, and I don't really want the experience of someone completely turning off and being okay, we were having a nice conversation and then you had to get all weird. That still makes me feel uncomfortable. And I guess honestly, I appreciate you asking, because pretty much what makes me uncomfortable is that specific situation is not for me. It's no longer a resonant match, or maybe it never was exactly, or maybe I'm planting seeds or they're planting seeds for future realizations or future threads of reality. But I feel within myself, only living with Carissa has it ever become really a staple of my life to be communing with myself, as I said on that first podcast that we did. I've never been so in touch with how she triggers me. We are so aware of each other that then we become so aware of ourselves. And we were just those people before we came into this relationship because of whatever trauma or issues that we have dealt with, right. Because we are easily triggered by other people or, aware of how other people are feeling. So that being able to bounce that off of someone who is well, I'm feeling like this, how are you feeling, has allowed me to come to a place of, okay, well, what am I feeling and where does that come from? I've always known and had this concept, and that's what my work is around, about the soul and about how to really feel into alignment and those kinds of things. But yeah, it's become like a new practice now that I'm in this situation, and it's really something that I really value.
And so you've always felt that.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
It's not just one morning you woke up and there it was. I mean, you've always felt some form of connection or energy or flow.
Well, okay, so you know what? No. Like, I mean, no. Honestly, I have always felt it, but I never had words for it. Like, there was nothing. So
yeah,
that was like something that like really overtook and sort of like ruined aspects of my life, or, you know, quote unquote ruined. But I feel like through my childhood and up until like even my adolescence and my like first spiritual experience as a young adult when I was dating my daughter's father, we like started meditating together and like reading spiritual books, and that was when I really had a context for what I was like, because I always felt it. I was always more sensitive to things. I was always like trying to figure out where the lines blurred between myself and other people's feelings and the needs of them and the needs of me and whatever that meant. I thought that was just all like human relationship. But really what it was, you know, I had more of this sort of mutable energy in me that kind of like gives and takes. And yeah, I coming to this place with Carissa and with myself, I feel like I have more of a sense of sourcing that within myself, being able to find tools to resource myself, and like understanding this flow and how I can best utilize it because of our interactions and our compassion and our nature with one another really is helpful to that.
Right. And look, I think that that's kind of key to some of the change that we see in society right now, right? Which is really cool. The fact that, and look, and there are so many things obviously between men and women right now that we don't have enough time in 10 shows to cover all of it, unfortunately. But I can certainly say that, you know, one of the things that I was challenged with as a guy, you know, and as a guy who, you know, grew up as a farm kid, was a bouncer in a couple of clubs, you know, firefighter, EMT, and so on, was that, you know, all of this, you know, empathic nature down most of my life, right? Because I was in a situation where I just felt that there was no way, because society said there was no way for me to be able to express any of this, right? Mm-hmm. So even in my work kind of as a life coach or a mindfulness coach, you know, I kept a lot of that quiet, and it was, you know, friends who would just approach me and say, look, I really need to talk to someone, you know, can you help? And, you know, and then that would turn into 3 months of work, and all of a sudden they're better and it's good. But especially if it was two guys, mm-hmm. I mean, you just, you know, because if it's not beer or barbecues or, you know, trucks or whatever, you know, it's just, so fortunately that's changing some, right? But I had to allow that to come out of me first, right? So I had to do a lot of work, and I mean, I'm still doing work, and I believe that we all do work, and we will for the entire time that we're here. So I think that for me, it was about allowing that to come out a little bit more, but then also being able to kind of go inside and get in touch with it, and then allow it to come out, and you know, and here I am, right? And so, you know, my little quote unquote breakdown, October 23rd, 2015, and, you know, all of the stuff, and then the PTSD diagnosis, and, you know, and this, whatever they call high intellect ADHD diagnosis on the same day, and all of the stuff that came around was also explained when I also started releasing a lot of this, you know, empathic nature. And now if you listen to a lot of the PTSD shows out there with, you know, firefighters, EMTs, psychologists doing these shows, and they're all saying, you know, we're finding that the majority of firefighters, EMTs, you know, they're empaths, you know, it's what drew them to, you know, trying to save lives and helping others and so on and so forth. And I'm like, yeah, no shit. Hello. You know, so, you know, finally people are talking about it. But again, this is 3.5 years after my little incident, which is, you know, lifetimes after so many other people have gone through so much of this, right? So that's why I was curious about, you know, whether it was something that you just, from a kid onward, you were like, mommy, buy me some tarot cards, or if it was something that came, later in life as you were working through some of this. Because as I was working through this, I had no idea that I was ever going to formalize, life coaching, mindfulness certifications, that I was going to go off and get certified in Ho'oponopono or like do any of these things. I was just like, if you had said any of that to me 4 years ago, I would have been like, who is this crackpot tarot card reader in the coffee lineup telling me that I'm going to do all these things, right? So I think that that's really cool, actually, that you're coming into this now, because in my opinion, you were maybe not in the same place, but you were in a place where so many others who you're going to connect with, who maybe don't realize that connection or that energy or that flow, the universe or any of those things, and they're stuck and they don't know why and they want answers, and and we're going to be able to help them open up through that, which I think is great because you've also been there in a way.
Yeah.
You've been there. You've always been a little bit aware, but that's really cool.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I've definitely had influences in my life who, through my time of feeling just really confused, came or were there in my life as sort of pillars of like magic, like specifically one was my cousin Laura. I knew her obviously through my entire life, but she always kept a journal, which was something that inspired me. She was always like talking about synchronicities, things that would happen and they would relate to this other thing. And she would like bring up those things in my life. And I'd be like, wow, yeah, that's like really cool. Like, I mean, I don't think anyone else would really think that that's, connected in that certain way, but the way that you connect things is like so magical, and I loved it. And I got like this inspiration from her. And then, through my life, there were also other people that played that role for me, that archetypal sort of priestess role, or, that sort of like spiritual person there, that energy was running through them, and maybe they didn't even know it at the time, but they were like in more of alignment with themselves, or they were showing me like how to be more in alignment with myself. And yeah, I mean, I've been reading tarot for maybe like, let me see, almost 10 years now, like 9 years. And a lot of that in the beginning was just personal and like friend stuff. But then I've been doing astrology for 7 years ish. And yeah, so there's this thread of like, there are sequences, or there are like phases of my experience with this energy, and like how much deeper and deeper, or like more aligned I've been getting with my own self and my own sense of self. But really, I've been aligned the whole time, or I've been maybe not aligned exactly, but I've been like, it's been flowing through me the whole time, and I'm just learning how to have context for it, and like be able
through that alignment, right?
Engage with it and stuff, which is, that's the point, I think, of what the work that I do, is to recognize the holiness and like the spirit in each person, and like try to help them see it in themselves, or see it in their own lives, like to depict it to them, so that, or to listen to them tell me it, and then just validate them in it. Validating someone in their experience is like probably the most important thing that I do.
Right. And that's actually what I love about, what both of you are doing. It's what I enjoy in what I'm doing, is that, well, for years with me under contract and doing all sorts of things, I mean, I was constantly giving people answers, right? That's what I was getting paid to do. If I have answers, give them to people and so on. And now what I love is that, and I think that as a society in general, we've just been inundated with everybody, putting their shit on top of us and telling us what we're supposed to do, what we're supposed to know, how we're supposed to feel, how we're supposed to think. So being able to, as you say, help other people go inside and find their own answers, and then to validate that, and, eventually work ourselves out of a job with each client, to the point where hopefully they no longer need our validation at some point, right? And their own validation is enough. So I think it's really cool. Now, I have to know, do the two of you just sit there all night and just like analyze and work with each other all the time? Or is it kind of like you kind of respect your space and then you're like, no, that's cool. We know who we are and what we do. And sometimes we help each other, but we're not like always like, wow, okay, are you reading me now? Are you, what's my energy? Where's my flow?
Yeah, we both have like things that are we're constantly, I mean, when you were asking about how long have you like felt this, been this way, I'm reinterpreting your question, but I really feel like both of us, one of the things that we really have in common is our last relationships were like kept us so suppressed and in such a difficult place for so long that there wasn't any choice but to like find that inner power to be able to break free of it, because everything society says, everything like that person says, like, well, we have a child, like we're in this relationship, you live here, like we live together, like you can't get out of this is, you have to make it work, and all of those things. And, to finally be like, and because we had like that codependent, deep relationship on a level, we've both agreed, like it felt like leaving your child, like that dynamic where, a mother would be like, well, I know that you have all the proof in the world that he's a serial killer and he's killed all these people, but like, let me just talk to him. I'm sure he didn't do it.
It's about like understanding that we have this empathy towards everyone having their own life issues and their own circumstances and stuff.
So there's like that deep, like empathetic bond of like, I know this person's authentic self. I bonded with them because like my best self and their best self. Now we've been our worst self. And like, I don't want to say that this is an awful person and I have to leave them. So there's like all of these things that we had to be like, but I am important. And like the light that needs to shine within me is important. And like, that's what my child actually needs, not me to like conform to all of this difficult stuff. This is not working. Like I have to be able to shine. And this is the worst possible environment. And so like, until we reached like that low, it wasn't as bright, like it was getting like built up inside of us and like undeniable inside of us. And that was the thing that finally said, like, go anywhere else, like do whatever you have to do, get out, like however you can and find something better. It will be immediately better. Like you can feel that, like feel all of this stuff. And that really like solidified it, I think, for both of us. And there is, I lost the like original.
That's like that breaking the glass ceilings of your own thoughts that aren't really your own thoughts, but like those like sort of those things that just keep coming up when you're like, no, well, that's not, I can definitely find another place to live, but like, what about we have a child together? Well, okay, but my child is going to be better for us having a healthy relationship. And you have to get through. And then honestly, all of these things, you have to have them. You have to have them there so that then you can be bigger, because otherwise you would be stagnant. You'd never have to grow if you
there's
never
no
had
point
anything.
to light if there's not some sort of like darkness that you're exposing and healing and, working through. So there's always that like need for contrast. So that was like kind of the origin of the topic. And your question was, we are constantly unraveling. I've got 35 years. What are you, like 28, 29 years? A lot in 28 years, 35 years, a lot of horrible stuff, like a lot of darkness, a lot of trauma, a lot of invalidation, a lot of bad patterns and horrible experiences and everything. Like we could be having a peaceful day and next thing you know, somebody's in a funk and it's because they got like a text from their ex or their other ex or their mother or something.
Or they saw a flower that reminded them of a funeral or whatever.
Just like anything. But we both honor like the beauty of that experience because we both believe and understand. So we've been getting into like Gary Zukov, and he talks about the difference between a 5-sensory person and a multi-sensory person. So a 5-sensory person is like, well, like these things are happening to me and like, I don't know why I'm cursed and all of this. And a multi-sensory person is the person that taps into exactly what we're talking about in this whole conversation, that deeper sense inside, instead of being like, I had a feeling I shouldn't have left today. And like, then I got in that car accident, like instead of that, just being like a casual thing you say, it's actually, that's the most important thing. We just had a post in one of our groups of a mother, and she was talking about how that morning she had decided she knew she was supposed to go outside and meditate like usual, hours before her kids will wake up, like all of this stuff. And she decided like it just didn't feel right. And so she meditated inside, and her son came out looking for her like hours before he was supposed to wake up. And it's not that he would have been in danger, but he would have had to like cry and look for her and all of that. Yeah. And wake up like feeling insecure. And instead of like instead of pushing herself to go outside, like, and her whole experience of it was like, I listened to my, like, you know, to my heart. I listened to my intuition, and I got to have the experience when he came out. I was just so grateful that I was there. And so, like, having that experience, and in Gary Zukav's books, he's talking about how, like, when something happens to a, you know, 5 sensory person, it's just like, this thing happened, and like, is this a great thing? Is this a bad thing? You know, like, what, but like, to a multisensory person, even when other people would say it's this horrible thing, like, we understand that that's where growth comes from. And so when, like, either of us, so when she is like really having a hard time, and like the whole mood, you know, like, I mean, she's not the one, like, we are equal in this. Like, when it's me, I'll put it on me. Like, when I'm the one that's like PMSing, or, you know, like breaking up with a guy, or, you know, whatever. And like, I can tell my kid is like crying more because he's not feeling as connected to me. And like, the kids are fighting more, and like, she's trying to tiptoe around me, and, you know, all of that, like, those kinds of dynamics. Like, I know that she's not looking at me like, there's something wrong, we need to fix this. You're not supposed to feel like this or be like this, because we both have that mutual respect of like, you're going through something, you're digesting something, processing something. And when you get to the point where you're ready to say, I've had these things come up in my mind, you know, as I've been processing this, these horrible things happen. Then you know, then the universe like brought in all these other horrible things, and it's making me really feel this thing. And it's like, oh, good. That's the thing that I need to like work on. And then we talk through it, and we're like, well, I've been feeling like this for like all these years, and like, since this happened, and my mom used to do this, or, you know, like, for me, a lot of it goes back to like a week of being like really traumatized in a house where people, like, where my family, my parents went to go house hunting, and they left us with my friend and her family, and it was just very traumatizing. So there are a lot of dynamics of me feeling trapped. Like, I couldn't reach help, I couldn't reach my mom because there weren't cell phones. She was off in Texas somewhere, you know, there wasn't any way to like really, for a child to like reach her. There were just like, there were so many things. I was trying to protect my brother, like so many dynamics. So there are many, many times where what I'm going through circles back to that experience. And I have like the, you know, like, that's what we do for other people, but we do it for each other all the time. And like, it like happens many, many times a week where one person's like doing a thing, and the other person will be like, so I had this breakthrough, or this thing is happening, or I can't stand that this is happening right now, you know. And it's just like, you put down your phone or whatever is going, like, just, you're just there, and you're just listening, and you're,
if you can be like,
yeah, I mean, sometimes it's
so
kind of stalled out, and, yeah, right.
We also like are very aware of our period cycles, because our hormones going up and down, like, also resonate with how much capacity we have to be there for one another, or how much capacity we have to really open up about our own stuff. So there is definitely space to be had. And there's also like, when we commune, we're very like conscious of how the other person is being able to receive that, which is the point that I think is so valuable too, because we are not only more able to be aware of our own selves through each other's triggers and emotions, or through our experience with each other, but we are able to be conscious of this while also still holding this. And it's like, it's an easy balance. And whenever we feel like something is off a little bit, we just shift, or we like pull back, and then we like come back at it, and it never feels personal. It never feels like,
it helps that we have 2 toddlers that are like constantly providing a million interruptions a minute.
Well, and you know, that's your $1 million idea. If you could ever bottle that shit and sell it, I think that would be amazing, because what you said about, you know, being able to kind of balance each other and so on, I would think, and based on, you know, a lot of what I've heard and what I see out there, that if I had another of me here at any given time, it would quite honestly, I know for a fact that it would take a lot of work to, unless the other person, like the two of you, we're in tune with it, and we're aligned with, and so that's where you are and what's going on. And that's the thing that I think
is the key word, though, attunement. And that is literally what she and I are selling. And it's fascinating on our ends, like, speaking of that, of managing, because we're dealing with people who have never had somebody attune with them, like not their mother, you know, never. And so they are almost like children, like toddlers, you know. So like, we've got our toddlers running around, and sometimes we have women that are like, describe every single thing that is happening in their world, every emotion that they're having, everything, because they never had someone who gave a shit or who validated them. They always were invalidated. So as those things are starting to like activate, like, oh, I'm allowed to feel feelings. And so they're feeling all the feelings, and they want like constant. And so we both like are kind of constantly upgrading our ability, because like the left brain business model, right, is like, I'm available like 9 to 5, or, you know, on these 5 days a week. And both of us work 24/7. Like I will wake up at 3 a.m. and I can't sleep, and I will be like responding to messages and going through the group and responding to things, because if my brain is working and I have that to give, I want to give it. But it has to be balanced out by also the permission inside of myself, because I honestly, no matter how much I feared it, I've never gotten a single person who didn't like totally get it. I have had to be inside of myself and say, like, this person messages me, if I have the slightest feeling of like, then I just don't need to talk to them right now. And there will be a moment where I'm like, oh, like I've got a few minutes. I'm like, oh yeah, what did she say? And it will feel natural. So like, it is that like just 100% my intuition. And it, you know, is that way, like in the conversations, it's not like, well, we live together and if, you know, she needs to feel like she can talk to me, so I'm going to have to like listen to this, even though like I really need to eat, or like you know, my kid didn't sleep all night, or, you know, I'm PMSing, or whatever the problem is. Like we both are learning that with that intention to be attuned to each other, to be attuned to our children, to be attuned to other people, etc. We're giving it out everywhere, but we have to be masters of knowing when not to give it, and when we don't have it, you know, have the extra and all of that. And that has been a like massive learning curve, I guess.
Well, and that would be the other side too. The two of you having been through as much as you have is making sure and being able to connect with each other so that you're not triggering each other.
Right.
Right. I mean, I like unintentionally when it comes to PTSD, I mean, unintentionally, my 4-year-old daughter has, I mean, she's just obviously the most amazing thing, like every father says, but her voice at certain times in play, her voice can actually trigger me to a flood of, you know, memories around a couple of really bad vehicle accidents and so on and such. But you know, it's unintentional.
Yeah.
But initially, you know, over the first couple of years before I was really kind of coming a lot more into my own, and, you know, and Ho'oponopono and meditation and, you know, and mindfulness and doing gratitudes every morning and all the things that I do that allowed me to come out of, I mean, you know, you have PTSD until they start doing scans and show that your brain has actually changed, which I believe it can physically change over time. If we work on it, we can change those traumas, but that's a whole other show. But what I see is that in those early days of that would trigger me, and it was all I could do to just work through the trigger without really understanding it. But then as I started working a lot more through, again, the meditation and all the other, you know, the trainings and certifications, practices, the things that I do on the daily, I find now that it's, I mean, I can use gratitudes even to work through that. You know, I start to feel a trigger at her voice, and I mean, I can work through gratitudes of, you know, the fact that she's my daughter and we're here, and, you know, the home we have right now that she's laughing and screaming in with her older brother, and, you know, all these things that allow you to work through it, excuse me, that it doesn't detract from that moment, but at the same time, it also doesn't send me into a full-on triggered kind of PTSD type episode. So I think that what I've found curious, and I've been wanting to know, and so you've answered it now, and that's amazing, but I've been kind of curious about the two of you, knowing, you know, some about your backgrounds and your situations and what has happened and what's led you to where you are now in your lives. The fact that the two of you can actually live together without, you know, without that. And I mean, I'm sure there's, you know, there are boundaries, but not being triggering each other all the time, because when one is down, you know, there's always that fear, and, you know, empaths talk about it, you know, most of you who work in any sort of energy or flow or anything, you know, in the universe talk about, you know, the need to ground yourself and clear yourself after working with someone else, so that you don't take on their thing as well. So I would think that living together even, that you have to have a very special bond there to be able to do that without sending the other, right?
You know, I think we do trigger each other all the time. I really think that that's part of why it works.
And maybe that's part of your growth.
But I think the difference is that I
don't blame her for my trigger.
I know I know what being triggered feels like in my body. I know, and I think that both of us had to have, again, like that awakening in the last relationship, because I think we both reach the same place of, I just would like life to feel good. I would like to be happy. I would like to be with somebody who can like take care of themselves, because we were both with somebody that like depended on us
convoluted
completely.
Yeah.
But we both
still are able to.
Yeah, but we both have we both have toddlers, right? So I mean, we can feel like, you know, like, was that comment meant to like be shitty or, you know, whatever, and then the next thing, you know, like your kid is like, you know, help me with this, or like biting your leg, or, you know, whatever, and you're like tickling them, and, you know, but we both like have that, I think, like, personality as mothers. We want their lives to feel light and playful. So it doesn't matter, like, if I am like in a shitty mood when my child like approaches me, if he wants to read a book, you know, like, it doesn't, like, she's the only person I've ever met that has 100% that, like, she could be like ready to cry or, you know, whatever, and then she'll be like, yeah, let's go read that book, and then she's like on, you know, like ready to play, even though it probably won't last very long, but, you know, like,
it's honestly just a way of like not dealing with my stuff. So it's like I welcome it.
Yeah, you're not ready to deal with it. Like, when you're in a really low place, it's just going to feel way worse than it needs to be. And like, we recognize that in each other, and we also, that's why we don't like always talk about things. We don't always approach things. I know that if, like, you know, if she's in a shitty place and she's not talking about it with me, she's working on it. She's processing it. And I think we both have, which was missing with our partners, like a fundamental trust and belief that
they were doing their own.
Yeah, that they're doing their own work. She's doing just as much work on herself as I'm doing on myself. Not like my partner was doing a lot of work on me and I was doing a lot of work on me. You know,
telling me all the things I did wrong.
Yeah, very good at that. But we both have the feeling that I love this person. I like this person. I enjoy this person. I like this person in my life. They bring way more good stuff than any bad stuff could matter, you know, and I think that's a big balance. Like, with our partners, it was like so much bad stuff that the good stuff started to feel like absolutely not worth anything. And they're like, but look, like, you were happy for a minute, and it's like, that doesn't matter anymore, you know. But like with us, it's like mostly happy, and it's mostly cooperative, and it's mostly, you know, a feeling that she is looking out for me as much as I'm looking out for her. And so it doesn't matter if, like, right now I'm, you know, like, I'm in a triggered state. I can feel the negative thoughts. I can feel the, you know, the feelings of like, well, she's going to be like that. Like, maybe this isn't going to work out, you know? And then I'm like, hi, voice that I don't need, you know, like, okay, let's like wave that away. And then it comes back, and wave it away. And then it comes back. And I'm like, where did this come from? And, you know, what do I need to do with it? And it goes away when my estrogen comes back.
And I think the point of like it coming up is like the really, instead of waving it away every time, just being like, okay, why is this coming up?
Sometimes like, it is just like when progesterone is on the rise, it creates specifically a dynamic of us versus them, which is why, like, so many activists are mothers, because it creates an us versus them. I need to protect us. So like, I had a house and I had my, you know, like, money problems, and I had my limited resources and all of that. And then when my progesterone rises, it starts to feel like stupid shit, you know. It'll be like, well, if her son eats so many strawberries, then like, we're not gonna have strawberries. And I'm like, we have, like, you know, EBT, like, the government is paying for our strawberries. Like, it's not like a big deal. Why do I have to have that thought? I know that it's progesterone, and as soon as my progesterone goes down, that, like, I don't feel that way. I want them here eating my strawberries, you know. It's the stupidest things. Sometimes it is just like, whoosh.
Yeah, like,
and no, and that's what I love about what you're doing, and that's why I want your message to spread, because it's the part of it that it's okay to be that way, right? It's okay to experience these things, but you're drawing attention to the why, right? Yeah. And obviously my big question that I've used for many, many years, and I mean, now I use it officially, but I mean, it was always like, what if? So, you know, I'm always asking people, well, what if, right? And in a variety of different ways, and not in a negative, but in the more positive, right? So what you're doing, I think, is that it's like the Brene Brown video that you shared with me that I watched last week, wasn't it? I think it was last week I watched that. And she was talking about, you know, how sometimes, you know, and she said women, of course, but sometimes women just need to be able to vent without, you know, the man trying to fix everything.
Right.
I did 12 years of fire and EMS. I grew up as a farm kid. I mean, all I do is fix, right? So, so I've had to, first of all, I've had to be careful, you know, as a life coach. I'm not here to fix, I'm here to ask questions now. And it took a while for me to, and I still do it sometimes, to not give advice, right? Like, it's right there and it's, I want to give, but I'm like, no, okay. So what I have found different, and it was funny because it keyed me into it watching that video, that even, you know, my wife, you know, come home and be talking about something. and my first instinct, of course, is to jump in and fix. You know, and of course, after 21 years, there's no question that at any given moment she's going to snap and knife me. Yeah. But to prevent that is I can key back a little bit on the fixing, and if anything, just shut my mouth. But if anything, you know, it's working her through, and I have. And now she'll watch this and she'll know I'm doing it on purpose, but I'll walk her through some gratitude or some scenarios around it, or the why or the what if, you know, that if, you know, if I speak at all, and then, and it's a much different dynamic when that's happening. So you're very right.
I think you would really appreciate this. I want to interject this because it's something that she and I have started like establishing. Cause like I said, some clients are like more needy or, you know, whatever. And some people we are like, I don't think I want to work with this person. Like, I don't think it's a good idea. So we've started to establish, I think you'll like this, especially with the EMT stuff. It's the difference between helping someone versus rescuing them. So often, and because you're used to rescuing and that he like gives you, but that's the codependency because the person has what they need inside of them. Right. And so when you're like, if you think of that of like, oh, this is that feeling that I get when like, I know if I try to like fix this for them, it's because you feel like they're wanting you to rescue them and you want to rescue them. And if you dial back and say like, how can I just help? And sometimes helping is like sitting back and letting them rescue themselves so that they can continue that pattern of finding out that the answer is inside of them. And like sometimes when people are like firing off a million messages and like tagging us and stuff, it's like sometimes they need a little space to realize that they're going to be okay even if we don't come in and like rescue them every time, you know.
Absolutely. And I completely agree with that. And I think that it's key, and it's key to, well, like I say, it's key to me not giving answers anymore, right? And helping people find their own answers instead is the helping versus rescuing, right? And again, I've been the rescuer for so many years that it really was a mindset change. And look, I know we're going to start running tight on time. So what I want to ask a little bit about, because there are going to be moms or dads listening out there who need to try to help their moms, right? Their spouses maybe. But when you're working with moms out there who say to you, yeah, well, that's all well and good, but you know, I know there's a video I can watch, there's a book I can read, there's, again, all answers, right? Just people giving answers. Mm-hmm. How do you help a mom find that time to do work with you? How do you help to set that stage? And I'm just curious, because I know there are going to be moms watching this who are like, well, I'd love to work with either of them or both of them, but where in the hell am I ever going to have the time? I can't even go to the bathroom alone right now, you know, and while I'm on the bathroom, you know, on the flush, I'm like ordering something online for the kids that they need for, you know, the new sneakers, and the school's calling. You know, how am I going to get a half an hour, 15 minutes? How do you help them stage that?
For me, I see it as like, there are many things that like, I mean, we've all done it where we like buy a book and we're like, I want to read this book. I'm excited about it. And like a year later, you're like, I never read this book, you know, like there are things that, and then when you finally read the book, you're like, I wasn't ready, you know, like I wasn't like, if you feel that calling and you are, you know, finding ways to do it, then like you're in the right place. And if you feel it and you're not finding the money, you're not finding the time, then you're not in the right place. And if you forced it, you know, like, you know, honestly, like I don't necessarily believe in forcing, because I believe that like if somebody decided, like the group that we have, the paid group is pay what you can. So, you know, like we actually had a client recently that paid $11 because she was having problems. And then she thought that it included all of my expensive mentorship stuff. And she was really disappointed. And so she was like second guessing whether she wanted to be in or not. And like, both of us are completely at peace with that, because if she's in it and she's not getting what she wants out of it, we don't need to keep her in it, you know, like, and
we aren't like,
worst case scenario, if she is a match and like, we feel like she should be in it and she wants to leave, then like, she may need like 6 months and then something else in her life like shifts. And then she comes back and says, you know what, I want to pay the full price. And I found the money for the mentorship package. And you know what I mean? Like, so like, just like, yeah, I mean, so many things I feel like telling people, you'll know that you are ready for it when it's happening. You know, if it's leaving a relationship, you will know that you are ready when you're looking back and went, oh, I did it. Like,
I honestly think that like, in my experience, and I work with everyone with my tarot readings and with astrology readings. I'm also a full spectrum doula. So
more than just mothers.
Yeah. I work with all kinds of women and people, but with our work together specifically, I mean, with all of the work that I do, I feel like when someone values something enough, they will make time energy and money happen in that direction as they continue to realize that it's valuable to them. So this is where, like, it's not forced. It has to be learned, and it has to be learned through all of the hurt and all of the pain, because you don't get to the place where you're like, I need to change this about my life and about myself, or I need help, support, guidance. I need someone to reflect me back to me, until you have lost yourself, can't find yourself, can't see, can't wade through all of the bullshit. Like, and I mean, in all of those realms of life, we need the support that we don't have, that, you know, society has sort of isolated us throughout our experiences with it. But we used to have this kind of community that, you know, sort of was there as a buffer and as like a support system. And we're trying to bring that back in a way that is so valuable, that we recognize is so valuable, but we had to recognize it through the experiences of not having it and needing to make time and find time and have the intention to move our lives toward that. So the people that I'm working with, if they don't have the money, or if they don't have the, you know, time in their space in their lives, I would ask them, okay, you know, well, I guess like phrasing this question would be a little hard for me, but I honestly, I don't know that I'd ask them anything. I'd say, okay, like, when you're ready, come to me. And then something grows in you as you know that you're ready for this thing, but something is, another time, those glass ceilings, like, I just don't have energy or time for this. Like, that's something that you place upon yourself. That is a restriction that you believe about your life that may or may not be true. And most of the time, I'm going to tell you, it's not true.
Yeah, I mean, we make it completely monetary. Like, you could give us $1 and be in there all month and
flexible.
have as much as much help as like she and I can humanly give to you, given all of our other clients and all of our other stuff. And you can do everything from your cell phone. You're in the Facebook group. You can have the PDFs. You can do like everything from your cell phone. So literally, you can like pay us $1 and then be like hiding in the bathroom for 5 minutes or whatever. And if, you know, like, there is the argument of like, okay, but I have a nursing newborn and a toddler that's climbing all over me, and like a 5-year-old who needs me to cook dinner, and like a 9-year-old who's got school projects, and a husband who's yelling at me, and like, okay, but that's probably not a good time for you to blow up like everything inside of yourself and like also, do all the big digging work. And like, it is like, we're here for you, but that like
moment's not right. But well, I mean, of course, that situation and scenario in your life is absolutely right for you to be like,
no question,
all of these people need something from me, but how am I giving too much? Like, and how much can I give back to myself?
But I mean, you can have people who like had horrifically abusive childhoods, and like, this is going to dig that stuff up, and you're going to have a newborn who's touching you and nursing, and a toddler who's climbing on you, and it's going to be like PTSD flare-ups, and you won't have time to process or work through it. So like, it's like, it is not my place to say like, you should be ready. I hate that, like, because that's all my like business training, and still my business mentor like still trying to train me to do that. Like, you need to get them on the call, and you need to say like, well, why don't you give me that credit card information? We'll just put it in right now. I'm like, I don't want to do that, because this is not like, this is very deep work, and the people who really need it need to be in the right place for it. Like, just because I had to learn that, just because I had the answers to my trauma stuff and I'd see the signs in someone else, it was never a place to be like, and I learned not, I mean, I don't think I ever did this, but I had to like learn in those moments to be like, I want to tell this person, like, did something terrible happen to you? You know, like that it is not their place and what they're going through, you know, to just dig that out in the middle of this argument and be like, oh my God, yeah, like, my stepdad beat the shit out of me. Like, no.
It reminds me of like, when in the Amanda Palmer book, when she says like, oh, like, this is just so hard for me. And she's talking to her mentor, and he says like, well, when it hurts enough, you'll change it.
Yeah.
You know,
right.
When it hurts enough.
Absolutely. Right. Yeah. Well, you know, pain is what provides the opportunity for growth. Right. And I mean, and that's been said in a million different ways by a million different people who are so much more smarter than me, but so much more smarter than me.
Yeah. No, I thought you did that on purpose.
I've just proven it. All right. So I'm from Eastern Canada. Don't. No, we're pretty smart up here. We're also very nice. So listen, I feel that we could do like 10 more of these.
Yeah,
and
right.
we can almost even outline a theme for everyone, because there's so much work that needs to be done. And I know, you know, even with Samantha, you know, doing so much more than just with moms, obviously, but the mom thing is something that, you know, I mean, my mom, you know, is and was everything to me my entire life. But, you know, then having kids later in life for me was like, wow, you know, and we even share things. But the funny thing is that society and the pressures of society, you know, will even, you know, notes will come home or group email messages or email messages to both my wife and I about our kids will come from, you know, schools or wherever. And they'll say, well, you know, your mom can, you know, she will, you know, and ask your mom. And I'm like we do, you know, I work from home, you know, so it's often me, you know, throwing some other dishes in the dishwasher or making the beds or, you know, running for the kids at daycare or school if one of them gets sick or whatever, right? And my wife is off, you know, sometimes she's traveling for her work in other parts of the province or other parts of Canada, whatever. So it's funny though that society still thinks, well, it's all on the mom.
Yeah. It's a disservice
so
to everyone.
let's put all of that on the mom, right? So, you know, on top of that, being able to work through some of the other things, whether they're from childhood or whatever, you know, other bad relationships, very traumatic relationships, all of those things. I think it's so vitally important that the two of you continue to spread your message and your work. So I want to do this again. And hopefully the people who are watching right now are thinking the same thing. They're thinking thumbs up because whether I'm involved or not, I just want them to keep watching you do the stuff that you're doing. And I love the fact, and for those of you who are watching who may have missed this when she said it a few minutes ago, 4 or 5 minutes ago, that, you know, it's a pay what you can type of scenario to work. And I think that that's extraordinary and it's exceptional, you know, and it's in
your idea.
Well, I didn't want to, after boasting it and building it up, I can't say, and by the way, it was my idea. You didn't need to throw that in there. But I think that, you know, and it wasn't my idea anyway. It was Amanda
Palmer's idea, which we already knew before you said it, and we were both like,
yeah. So, you know, I can't take credit for it either unless Amanda lets me. But, I think that opportunity to find something in the energy and in alignment for those who maybe just physically just don't have the $1,000 right now or have $200 or have $100 or $30, you know, if the universe has provided, you know, what it's provided and they're open to, you know, being in alignment with you and working through that, then I think it's exceptional that you're offering that. So I know that down below here somewhere in some wording, you're going to have your links to your Facebook groups, which is amazing. So any of you who are watching, go check it out, obviously, and share these groups around. And if nothing else, just be watching for each other out there and be watching for those who are close to you. And if you see that they need someone like these two amazing women right here, then obviously get in touch. That's it for me.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you so much. Have an amazing day and hopefully a fun and rejuvenating weekend. Take care.
You too.